In today's video, I want to talk to you about classroom culture and how to create a really positive one in your classroom. I'm EJ Kafooples. This is Kafoople Land. This channel is all about teaching and well-being. I'm glad that you're here. Welcome. And if you like what you see here, I'd love you to consider subscribing to this channel. Kathy from the Math Reflective reached out to me and asked me if I'd like to be a part of this teacher tag that she has made as part of her, I think, back to school series, because over in the Northern Hemisphere, they're about to go back to school. Here in Australia, we're in the middle of our school year. But I said, yes, I would love to talk about classroom culture because I think it's a really important thing. There are a few other teacher tubers involved in this collab, so make sure you go and have a look at the playlist which is below this video. I'm really happy to do this topic because it fits perfectly into our AITSL standard number 4, which is all about creating and maintaining a safe learning environment for students. So I'm going to go ahead and answer Kathy's questions, and I might try to weave in some of the AITSL standard number 4 at the same time while I'm talking. Here in Australia, we have to provide evidence when we're going for our teacher accreditation, so I'll try to just throw in a couple of little tips on what you could show as evidence for meeting this particular standard. I think that my classroom culture could probably be described as safe, fair, and orderly. When I was doing my prac teaching, I always got comments from my supervisors saying that I was really good at creating a safe environment for students because I have quite an encouraging demeanour. Making students feel welcome is all about making them feel like they belong in your classroom and that this is a safe place for them. I like to create an atmosphere of inclusivity and sincerity from me to the students, respect, and the fact that everybody gets to have a fair go, and that if you answer up, you're not going to be ridiculed, you're not going to be put down, you're not going to be made to feel as though you've said something silly. One way that I try to do that is a simple daily routine of greeting my students at the door when they come to my classroom. So I really try to look each student in the eye and say their name if they don't walk in too fast, and to greet them and to make them feel welcome with a big smile and look into their eyes. And I'm trying to train them to look back into my eyes when they say hello to me, because Aussie kids aren't very good at doing that. The teacher is really the one who is responsible for creating the classroom culture. And whether they like it or not, whether they know it or not, everything that comes from you will get reflected back to you from the students. Some things will come from outside as well. I'm not saying that that won't happen, but you really are the one who sets the tone. I think it's really important for teachers to spend some time considering what their culture is, their personal culture, considering what the school and the departmental values are. Also, values like growth mindset, leadership, sincerity, tenacity, resilience, integrity, accountability, responsibility, all of those things I know that I hold very dear, and I think that they're reflected in my teaching practice and in the environment in my classroom. Many students, I find, don't have belief in themselves, so I really try to model and create a sense of belief, and I try to help students overcome false beliefs that they have about themselves, that they can't do stuff, that they're no good at anything, that their answer is wrong or stupid, that English, my subject, is no good. And I also try to train them to establish new, positive beliefs about themselves and their learning. I do this through praise, establishing routines, modelling, using talk alouds, all of the things to try to help the students over time develop a new positive belief in their abilities. I find that I use a lot of settling and calming strategies with my younger students in particular, and especially those who have some learning difficulties, because I find that the way I start the lesson helps to set the tone. So I'm at the door, friendly, nice, welcoming, then I'm at the front, calming, directing, and establishing the routine so that they can get straight to their learning as quickly as possible. When I do that, it sets the tone for the entire 50 minutes of the lesson, and it helps them to achieve their learning goals. I remind the students from the start of the lesson of the expectations. I have fairly high expectations, but I do it in a fair way. And then I praise students who are able to settle quickly and to get on with the routine and the work that they're expected to do. And that helps to make it contagious with the other students. Something new that I'd like to incorporate is a bit of a mindset, I suppose, that we learnt in our recent staff development day. It was from the 8 Ways of Learning for Aboriginal students and other students. And I really liked this session. We did this session where all of the teachers got together and the people led us through a set of exercises designed to help us figure out like what our culture was, what our identity was, where we belong, what's important to us, what symbols are important to us, how we feel when we walk into a certain space, how we connect with our environment, how we see our ancestors and how we connect with our ancestors. And I would really like to take those concepts and try to instill them into my students going forward. Because I think it's really important for students to know who they are, to know where they're going, to know what they're responsible for, and to have a sense of identity so that they can, own their learning and be proud and comfortable in their identity. As well as understanding, reflecting and refining our own individual values as teachers, I think it's really important for us to be as consistently fair as is humanly possible with our students and show them that we are human, but at the same time try to be really consistent with our expectations and with how we want our classroom to look. And that, of course, should be in line with not only our personal values, but the values of the department, the values of the school, and the values really of the community in which we work. My final thought for teachers is that you embody the values, you create the culture, and you set the tone in your classroom. So I just wanted to have a little chat about how you can show the culture in your classroom, because for our standards, you're supposed to provide evidence, and it can be really tricky to get something that's invisible or intangible and sort of show how you're doing it. And oftentimes these things that are almost immeasurable happen over a period of time as well. It's not like you walk into your classroom and straight away you've got the culture that you want to have in your classroom. So here's just a couple of little ideas that you could use. With student participation, there is an expectation that students will work to the best of their ability at all times. That's the expectation that I have in my classroom. And that expectation has to be constantly reminded, or regularly, I should say, regularly reminded to the students. I do this verbally. I have stuff on my wall. I have my values written up on the wall so that I can point to them and kids can look at them and I can refer to them as we go through the lesson. Kids are kids and they need constant reminders of what's expected of them. I really try hard to create a positive environment in my classroom and the expectation that there's going to be inclusivity both from myself and from the fellow students in the classroom. And so I do that through my text choices. I try to have text choices that represent people from lots of different cultures, lots of different places, and lots of different walks of life. Also with my language, I try to use inclusive and positive language with students. I try to use praise to help get kids know what I value and what I want them to keep doing and the way that I want them to keep behaving. And some of those things can be written down as well as part of the program so that there's evidence there of you doing it. Also, I find that if I'm going through my kids' books, I try to always put positive comments throughout the kids' books and on their hand-in work, their assignments and assessment tasks. I try to always put something positive. I think most teachers do that these days, which is really great practice. And it helps to establish that respectful, positive environment in your classroom. To engage and support all students, I try to move around the classroom regularly and check in with all of the students. I also try to work with the teams at my school, like I work with the SLSOs, I work with the LASTs, I work with the parents when I can, and the head teacher. I think it's really important for the head teacher to come into your classroom from time to time, just so that the kids know this is my community. It's not just my teacher trying to boss me around. I've got a community of people around me who support me and who want the best for my learning. I think that helps them take accountability for their learning as well. I think it's a really positive thing. So to show evidence of that type of stuff, you've got email communication records, you've got PLASPs, Personalised Learning and Support Plans, or PLPs. You've got formative assessments, you've got modified tasks to show that you're supporting all of the students in your classroom, and also you've got central referrals for when you are logging certain things that have happened in your classroom to show how you're creating a safe space for your students. Making clear, workable routines helps to manage your classroom activities. And you are in charge of that. You can do it with student input, of course. And the way to show that you're doing all of that is to have it in your programs and also to have it in your on your wall so that everything is clear and visible. There's no room for misunderstanding. I do regular explicit reminders for my students of what I want them to do, like I mentioned before, and my routines for coming into the classroom, for getting ready for work, sitting down, getting your books out, for exiting the classroom, and for how to get help with your work. Those routines are very explicit, and I say them verbally, and I have them written down as well on the wall. For managing student behaviour, you have to have, again, clear expectations. You have to be consistent, you have to be fair, you have to be kind, or these are my rules for myself. You have to be kind, you have to be consistent, and You have to set the example yourself. If you don't want kids to be disrespectful to you or to other kids in the classroom, then you don't be disrespectful to them. You always show yourself to be a respectful person. To show evidence of this, you can have things like a copy of the Department of Education, I forget what it's called, but it's like the school rules or the guidelines for behaviour for students in departmental schools. You have your school's wellbeing and discipline policy. You have your own policy, and you show that you have been using the school's discipline policy by, for example, having the behaviour monitoring card and using it and having that there as evidence of you following the guidelines. 4.4 and 4.5 is about student safety, managing it, and also with the ICT aspect. And again, that goes with your values and what you will and won't accept in the classroom. And I think that should be reflected in your programming and through modelling the way that you use ICT and the way that you use the classroom in a safe manner. If you would like to join in this tag, you're more than welcome. I'll put the questions underneath this video here. It's a really good thing to think about on a regular basis, I think, how you are creating your classroom culture. If you don't intentionally create a classroom culture will be created. So I think it's better to take a proactive approach and to really think and consider about what you want to have in your classroom. I hope that this video has been helpful. Feel free to leave me a comment underneath. Don't forget to check out the other channels in the playlist below. And if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up, do yourself a favour and subscribe to my YouTube channel, and also hit that little bell button so that you can get notified. And apart from that, I shall see you next time. Thanks, Kathy. Thanks for organising it. A bit of a different location today. You can walk. It's all a bit weird. Good. Yep. That shadow is irritating, however. Yep. What's going on there? Look, I'll explain why later. Classroom. What's wrong with my voice? What? No. Whoa. As evidence. And to help us, because I think it's if you don't want kids to be disrespectful to you or to other kids in the classroom, then you don't be respectful to them. You don't, in their identity. No. If you don't do it an intentional and live. You embody the culture. You embody the values. No wrong order. Values, culture. You. Referral. Do yourself a favour and subscribe to my YouTube. Do yourself a favour.